did you do to me?
What do you mean, what did I do to you?
I didn't know being a princess was contagious.
Okay, calm down.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk with Tom. My name, of course, is Tom, and this is a show where I casually talk about any show I want to talk about because it's my show, and we block out the haters here. Speaking of blocking out the haters, we're talking about a show today that just came out, but for a very, very long time, ever since the first concept art was released, this show's been getting hate. And I would actually address this in a very diplomatic, educated, well-constructed way. But the thing is, the people who are hating on this show, the ones who don't exactly understand why the choices about representation and diversity are not only justified, but in a way very important, those people aren't going to change their minds based on what I have to say. They aren't going to listen to me. If they're going to listen to anyone, it's not going to be me. Even the ones who aren't the dudes who are upset that a 2D 16-year-old girl doesn't look like someone that they could think about when they don't have a real-life woman around, even if you ain't one of those people, like the people who are hating on this show, I'm not gonna reach them. And a lot of the people who are still hating on this show, the ones who have been ranting for months, it's kind of hard to take their criticism as anything more than just confirmation bias. So at this point, I'm just kind of like, yo, I'm gonna just celebrate this show for what I like it for, and everyone else can just mind their own business. So with all that said, I've watched this show myself. I've watched it a couple times over, actually, because I really enjoyed it. And the fact that I really enjoyed it kind of goes to show you that I have a very positive view of SheRa and the Princesses of Power.
But Tom, how do we know that you're just not speaking out of confirmation bias, because you've been hyping this show up for months?
Well, just in general, it doesn't matter. Like, just in the scape of the universe, it doesn't matter. But also, if you're watching this show, I assume it's because you want to hear my thoughts and feelings. I assume that you trust me and respect me. So I'm just gonna come out and say, like, there are some times in this show where I was like, bruh, it feels like they ain't going anywhere with this specific thing, and they better go somewhere with it, because if this show doesn't turn out to be good, I'm gonna look like Boba the Fool. Like, I'm gonna have to take an L on this, because I have been hyping this up for so long. But when the show did that, they would usually end up delivering with something big and impactful, and like overall, all the pieces, even if some of them were kind of difficult to fit in there, they all fell into place. So I'm happy with how the show turned out. I say that like I made the show. Yes, I am Noelle Stevenson. But no, I'm really happy with how this show turned out, because I was hyping it up. But I do have one criticism. Just so y'all know I ain't being overly biased. I do have one criticism that I think is really an easy fix for future seasons, but it really got under my skin this time. The continuity. The visual, like, continuity of what's going on, especially when it comes to SheRa's sword. Sometimes it would just disappear. Even when it was, like, important to a plot point. Like, when they were escaping the Fright Zone, like, one of the main plot points there was we gotta get SheRa's sword back so Adora can turn into SheRa, and she's running out of there, and she doesn't have the sword in her hand. She doesn't visibly have it on her person anywhere. She's just running out of there with nothing, just completely empty-handed. And it's like, wasn't the point to get the sword? Like, she doesn't have the sword with her. And there are a couple times where it just appears and reappears out of convenience. That can easily be fixed by just, like, giving her an actual scabbard or just putting it on her back like they do a couple times. Like, just do something to communicate to me, the viewer, like, yo, this is where it is. This is what the status of the important item that allows the main character to transform into the hero she is. This is where it is. Because sometimes it just like evaporates out of thin air. But that's like my main criticism. That, like I said, it's an easy fix. Some people might not even notice it. I noticed it. Now there are a lot of things I want to talk about with SheRa, and I'm probably gonna end up making more videos in the future about this show because I really enjoyed it, and there are a lot of things that stuck out to me that I want to talk about. But for right now, I'm gonna talk about the main thing about this show that I think makes it so great, and that is the characters. And I'm someone who's usually like, yo, I want story before I want good characters. But at the same time, I don't think I've ever watched a show that made me fall in love with so many characters on the cast. Like, I don't think I even dislike any characters. There are just some characters that I'm just not as big a fan as I am other characters. But I just want to run through the cast, focus on some people who are important, and You know, just kind of mention others, talk about everyone, what they add to the story, and how they are so likable, or just how they serve the function that they should serve in the show. And of course, first of all, we have to talk about Adora, who is SheRa herself. Adora is a great protagonist. I honestly think she's really likable. I think Amy Carrero does a really good job of voice acting her, just like making her feel really human. Like, that's one of the main things that I think makes her likable from the get-go. It's just the voice acting feels very genuine. Her expressions feel extremely real. I think that does a lot to just make the character come alive. Beyond that, she has all this power. She has this ability to turn into a great hero, but it's basically like putting on a suit as a superhero. Like, Adora and SheRa are separate, and there's a lot of focus on Adora being great without being SheRa. There's even a point in the story, like a main point in the plot, where they take away her sword and force her to function just as Adora and not be able to turn into SheRa. Because SheRa is super overpowered, but even though she's overpowered, she also has drawbacks, which gives a good balance to her as a hero and also just to Adora as a character. This is also all happening while Adora is still learning to become a hero, and she has to evolve as a person because she has all this emotional baggage from spending her entire life being indoctrinated from a very, very young age by the evil horde. And what's interesting about that indoctrination process is the fact that Adora's humanity wasn't stripped from her. Her compassion, her sense of caring for other people is all there. The thing is, the Horde convinced her that the interests of being a part of their military and doing all of these awful things, it was what was good for the world. It was actually acting on her humanitarian side. So she was redirected to believe that, and then once she is shown through a process that feels like it drags on, but it also kind of makes it feel like her face turn is justified, through a process of seeing what is outside of the evil horde, what is outside of the fright zone, she starts to understand why what they're doing is wrong and why she needs to focus her efforts elsewhere to become the good person that she wants to be. Because she thought that as a horde soldier, she would be invading fortified rebel outposts and not a civilian town with unarmed people. That kind of sounds familiar, actually. A lot of the show is spent with Adora being around Bo and Glimmer, who, these three characters, their entire friendship is so great and so wholesome. Their dynamic is kind of reminiscent of Avatar with Aang, Katara, and Sokka, where it's kind of like this alien person who is from a completely different culture, a completely different world, is just completely foreign to everything that's going on between these two people who have known each other for a very long time. But the difference is, instead of it being a bickering pair of siblings and one person who has a crush on one of the people, like that whole thing, it's really just like a group of teenagers who just happen to be very good friends. And that's a dynamic that's really hard to pull off, and this show manages to do that. Not only does it pull it off, but it also shows a representation of a very healthy and wholesome and genuine friendship between three people. Like, all three of these characters unconditionally love and care for each other, and that's shown multiple times throughout this season, and it's really heartwarming. And like, I cannot get enough of that. Like, bruh, show me more of that in season 2. As for the individual characters, Bo is really great because he's such a kind-hearted and open-minded person. He's always trying to see the good in people, and he's extremely honest about everything from his emotions to just his points of view, to whether or not he thinks something is a good idea or not. Then Glimmer, I think, is one of the most underappreciated characters in the show. There are multiple times where Glimmer is just a straight-up MVP, literally picking up her friends when they're down, and also her teleportation powers. Not only do they serve as a way for them to get out of some really tight spaces, but there are some really cool and versatile action sequences because of it. So put some love on Glimmer's name, y'all. Then, of course, the fan favorite, Catra. Catra is Adora's former best friend from when she was in the Horde, and now that she ain't in the Horde, she's like the main antagonist. I love Catra as a villain because she's the type of villain where you understand her motivations completely. You understand why she's doing what she's doing. You even sort of feel the same feelings that she feels that leads her to do the things that she does. There's always a part of you that wants to act selfishly and get competitive with the people you care about when you feel like they're getting more than you and there's just a gap starting to form between the two of you, and you're falling into their shadow. Once you start feeling like you have to play catch up with the people you love, there starts to be a form of resentment there, and it's a demon that you feel ashamed of because you should be happy for your friend because they're successful, they're living their dreams, they're doing all these things that they want to do, but at the same time, you can't help but let your selfishness kind of get the best of you. And it's not even really selfishness, more so just a self-loathing, because you ask yourself why you're not good enough, why you let them get so far ahead of you. And it's kind of similar to what's going on with Deku and Bakugo and My Hero Academia, except there's a lot less just straight up rage going on, but it's the same kind of idea that serves as a motivation for the characters' rivalries. And the thing is before Adora left the Horde, even though this was starting to kind of eat away at Catra already, she was able to cope with it and see that Adora did genuinely care about her, and she was putting forth a lot of effort to not let that get the best of her, but then even when she did that, Adora just kind of up and left, and she feels like she abandoned her. And even now that Adora is gone from the Horde and Catra has risen to take her place, Shadow Weaver, who acts as both like a superior and a mother figure to both Adora and Catra, she's still just telling Catra, your only mission is to get Adora back, and once we get Adora back, you out, you back where you were. And that pitting the two against each other, that's definitely not helping Catra with the demons she already has when it comes to Adora, and it definitely doesn't help with the whole resentment and everything, and the feeling that Adora abandoned her. So all of this gives Catra a very real and very sympathetic motivation that is rooted in a very genuine and relatable feeling of pain. Not to mention her snarky, rebellious personality really melds and blends well with that motivation, and it fits her very well and makes her a very enjoyable character to watch overall. And now for all the other princesses that aren't Glimmer or Adora, all the other ones, there's a whole lot of them. There are some that don't play a big role though, so I'm not really going to talk about them. Like Natasa and Smeralda. They're cool, they're great, I'm sure they're going to play a big role moving forward, but they didn't really do a whole lot this season, so I'm not going to talk about them. Not that I don't like them as characters or nothing, it's just they didn't give me a whole lot to talk about. I think they got like a Sailor Neptune, Sailor Uranus thing going on where it's like, yo, yeah, you know what I mean. Overall, when it comes to like the whole gay agenda thing, honestly though, it's not really there. Like, I know that Bo has 2 dads and that's been confirmed, and they didn't really show it in this season, probably because like they didn't really formally announce it. It just kind of slipped out at the New York City Comic-Con panel because I was there, and it was just like one of the voice actors was like, wait, can we, Noelle, are we allowed to say that Bo has a, and she was just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And they were like, all right, Bo has 2 dads. So it is like Sailor Moon, where it's like you feel like it's got a lot of LGBT, like lesbian and gay energy coming off a lot of the characters and the dynamics, but it's not really like, it's just the energy is there, and there are like a couple characters where it's pretty obviously implied that they're together. But the people out here claiming like, oh, is this the gay agenda at work? Like, they're actually crazy, so don't pay mind to them. So let's actually go down the princesses like I said a minute ago. Okay, one of the first princesses we see is Marissa, who can transform into a mermaid, and she can control waves, and like, she's like Aquaman and a waterbender at the same time, so that's pretty cool. And she also has a, what would you call it, a booty call? Seahawk? I'm gonna call him a booty call. And it's like a thing where they're kind of sorted together, but it's more so like she's just with him out of convenience. And boy, is he thirsty, and it makes sense that he's with Marissa, because with those water powers, she's the only one who can quench his thirst. I'm sorry. So Perfuma. I love Perfuma's writing for the fact that she shows a lot of the same character traits as Rose Quartz from Steven Universe. And as a lot of y'all know my stance on Rose Quartz, I don't really like her in the context of the show, like the actual character traits herself. I think her writing is fine. I actually like the way they deal with her writing. However, one thing I think they could have done better is they never really portray some of her negative character traits. They'll show that there are negative effects, but they don't really showcase it. For the most part, a lot of her negative traits, like her unwavering positivity that is really just ignoring negativity, they don't really say or like present why that's a problem. However, Perfuma has the exact same character trait where she is super positive, but not positive in the way that she is genuinely positive. Like, I love genuine positivity, but there's another kind of positivity where it's just, we're not gonna deal with our problems. We're just gonna shove them off in the corner and pretend they aren't there. And that's how Perfuma is, and they present it as a character flaw and present it as something that she needs to get over. And they show exactly why that sense of positivity it's not a healthy one, especially once they have her on screen with Entrapta, because Entrapta's all over the place personality really tests her patience, and she gets really frustrated, kind of showing that that positivity isn't as sustainable as we might think. Now, Entrapta is also one of my favorite characters, especially the fact that she had a whole heel turn towards the end of the season. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling, but she had a whole heel turn, and they didn't, completely change her personality. Her personality is the same, and there was a level of manipulation and change in motivation there. And it was very justified, but it was based in a misunderstanding that made it justified. A lot of people don't like Entrapta. They claim that she's an awful person or whatever because she joins the bad side, or something along those lines. I went out and I looked for discourse on this show, and I saw a lot of people saying that people don't like Entrapta, but I really only saw one or two people actually speaking out saying Entrapta's an awful person or whatever. So I don't know how big of a wave there actually is claiming that, but I mean, I think it's kind of unfair to be saying that about a teenager who made some mistakes in a show about young people who are making mistakes as they try to grow, and is overall a story of redemption. I think the idea is probably don't just condemn people because they made the wrong choices here or there, and they end up hurting people along the way. I think that's the idea of what we're supposed to take away from this show. So I think people demonizing Entrapta might be a sign that they need to do a little bit more to get that message across. And also, characters change a lot throughout the course of a show. Look at Steve Harrington at the end of season 1 compared to season 2. People went from hating him to loving him within a season. So maybe the same thing will happen with Entrapta, especially as some misunderstandings start to get cleared up. But my point is just, I like Entrapta. I think she's an enjoyable character to watch. I feel like my feelings on Entrapta are a little too complicated and nuanced, that I would need a whole video, and I don't want this to be a super long video. I feel like it's already gone pretty long. So I'm gonna just get into my last points. A great thing I noticed that enhances the character focus of this show is the fact that they give everyone something to do. They put them in situations that show what they can do and what they have to offer, as well as some of their vulnerabilities. And they do that while also giving us, the audience, a chance to appreciate the characters for who they are and really build that relationship. And sometimes these situations don't even directly tie into the main story, at least not at first. In the beginning of the show, in the first arc, they have a whole sequence where they go into a village and Bo finds out that Adora never had a party in the Horde.
Right, parties! I mean, yeah, of course. I don't know what that is.
So he was insisting on them partaking in this festival so Adora could actually have that experience. And in the moment, I was kind of sitting there okay, are they actually gonna, this feels like it's going on for a long time, and it feels like we're kind of getting sidetracked from the main story, but then it ended up tying into the main story, and it gave so much more justification and reason for why Adora would end up turning on the Horde. So that little sequence of yo, is this actually going to go anywhere, actually went somewhere, and actually paid off. So, I mean, I can go on about this show for a very long time. It's fresh in my mind, and there are so many great things that I'm noticing, so many things I want to talk about. I definitely want to do more videos about SheRa in the future, but for right now, I don't want this video to go on forever. I'm already gonna have to edit something pretty long, so I'm gonna cut myself off right here. That's all I gotta say from now. See you next time. Roll the outro. Thank you for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable, but Tom isn't just on the Roundtable. I have my own self-titled personal channel, I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a Snapchat, I have all that good stuff. In fact, I even have a Tumblr. So, if you're interested in any of that, check that out, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!